Hello, I'm David Hill, musical director of the Bach Choir, and I'm thrilled to be interviewing and talking to today Errollyn Wallen, who's one of the most foremost composers of our time at the moment. She's really so super in the whole kind of mode of knowing what people really want to hear. And indeed, Errollyn, welcome. You're in Chicago now, aren't you, for
Yes,
the premiere of an opera?
yes. My new opera, Quamino's Map, is premiering on Saturday, 23rd of April, and I also currently have a brand new opera written at the same time, The Paradise Files, which is touring at the moment. In fact, performing tonight in Milton Keynes. So there's a lot going on.
Well, thank you for making time for us. Well, the Bach Choir's really looking forward to performing your wonderful piece, Pace, which I've done now several times and absolutely adore. And we're doing this for a concert, as you know, in May into spring. As a matter of interest, how did that whole piece come about?
Do you know? I think some of the best pieces I've composed have been usually we have a very personal connection. So this one was composed for a friend of mine, um, and it was for his 60th birthday, and it's a piece I'd actually started earlier and put to one side, but then I was asked. I can't remember the exact origins about for it, but then that's why I was asked to write a work for compilation, and that forced me to finish it. And it was one of those pieces that it seemed to sort of twist and turn. I worked on it for quite a long time just to get the proportions right. I haven't written a piece like that quite before, and I don't know if I'll write one like. But what was memorable is coming to the rehearsal that you were leading with the BBC singers I think it was last June, and I just loved your interpretation of it. You brought new things out in that piece. It's beautiful.
Well, thank you. And it somehow has an incredible effect, actually, I feel. And also the choir is loving getting into this. And probably, I don't know, maybe it's been done lots by big choirs, but we will have a large choir doing it at probably 108. So it will have a kind of symphonic richness to it, as well as an intimacy, I hope. So that'll be another angle to it. So we're really looking forward to it. And you're actually composing more choral music these days, aren't you? Is that one of the things you're doing?
Yes, and that's partly through your encouragement, David, and also I think the release with King's College Choir of Cambridge that came out a couple of years ago. That's had an effect. But people seem to love, particularly Part Chase, See That I Am God, um, which is the other one on that disc, I can't even remember. But it's funny enough, the day after the premiere in Chicago, See That I Am God is being performed at Bella Voce. And I think, I'm not known for being a choral composer, but I'm very happy to be asked to write more because I'm really keen to write music that will, when you're writing for a choir, you're writing for people I'm writing with both amateurs and professional, and that's important to me.
Excellent. And that's, dare I say, the singing community is wanting more so that we can, really get grasp and be challenged by it. You're a singer too, of course. And so, I mean, however, have you sung in choirs? Is your singing still a very important part of your life?
Yes, it is. I've never considered myself a good singer, but at school, we sang a lot of madrigals. We sang hymns every day. I would play for the hymns. I would often choose the hymns, and so our music teacher really instilled in us. We sang a lot of Benjamin Britten, plus earlier English music, and I think that laid a good foundation for me. It was much later that I started to sing my own songs, to write and sing them. And that opened a new door. And what's lovely now is that a lot of, really great singers and classical singers, jazz singers are singing the songs I've written for myself to perform. And, writing for an opera, that's a different sort of writing for the voice again. And so I see this as a lifelong journey. To understand, what voices can do is an endless quest, to be honest.
Absolutely. I heard on Radio 3 a piece being played yesterday of yours. And I know, I mean, your career is sort of full of firsts, not least your own music being performed in space on NASA's mission. Tell us, how did that come about?
I was in Houston somewhere in 2000, say 2005 or something, and I met an astronaut called Steve McLean, and he was. At the time I was writing an opera, it was about an astronaut getting ready to go to Mars. And actually, Steve told me that originally NASA had intended us to be in Mars by 2014. It's interesting, isn't it? But he was helping me, advising me when I was composing this opera. And through him, I had an insight into the training required. But also, we became fast friends. I, I, I taught him how to play the ostinato part for my song Guru, and that explained how he could improvise over that and then impress his children. And we became great friends. We would have these long hour conversations about his experiences of being in space. And anyway, he went I went out there for the launch, but unfortunately it was delayed, so I had to come back to the UK. But it was only months after he returned, this frame disc arrived from NASA to say that it had been in outer space. And Steve actually told me that he'd taken all my recordings into space with him. And I'm still getting over what that actually means. It was so exciting.
Yeah. Um, Now, I think the very first time we spoke together was actually when you were in your lighthouse in Scotland, and I went, "What? You will live in a lighthouse?" And I was sort of excited by the whole thing. So, how do you spend a lot of time there? Do you do a lot of your composing there? Do you find that sort of the kind of um, um,
Yes,
influences what you can do?
definitely. I've only had that place since 2016, but it's a place you can work in great concentration, deep quiet. But of course, you're in this majestic. When I say majestic, I'm top of the Atlantic, right on top of the Atlantic, with these huge cliffs, and it's a very leveling place for me. And recently I've been working so intensely on these operas, and I find it's a great place for me to concentrate.
Is it just that you actually don't also want to be away from too many other sort of influences and things, so you can really concentrate? For instance, you have great internet. I was going to,
I,
we
what,
do not have it.
Yeah, I don't have great internet. So what it was been a lifelong dream to live on top of the sea, to live in a place where nobody could hear me playing the piano. I couldn't hear anybody else, and where I could. What's the third thing I wanted? Top of the sea, nobody could hear me. Yeah, absolute quiet was good. Absolute quiet, the sea, and solitude. But until I went there, I hadn't actually really experienced the sort of solitude you can have. And I thought, because I'm a very gregarious person, being having brought up in London, but it's like I found a new part of myself. And I think for every composer, every musician, to be honest, to have a place where you can just sort of be and hear your own thoughts is it's been invaluable. It's not always easy being there because it's I'm quite remote, but I think I've been so much more productive since having it.
This year is the 150th anniversary of Vaughan Williams's birth, who was, I don't know if you know Errollyn, but he was a previous singing member and then musical director of the Bach Choir. So, which is why we're kind of putting around lots of other composers, including yourself, around this, I believe, to be a really, really important figure in terms of like the incarnation of music in the 20th century. Do you like Vaughan Williams, and do you have any pieces that you know that you particularly love?
I think he's an incredible composer, and I think um, I suppose I grew up with his music, and I feel as if he's at the bedrock of a particular, you know, British language of music. And I find it a little strange that there's often been a resistance to what he stands for. And what I strongly believe is that music has this multiplicity of expressions from its composer, and he has fabulous technique, fabulous way of handling orchestras, voices. I just think he's a central composer of our time.
I totally agree. And I remember when I was being was at Chetham's actually music school in the 70s, and um, he was poo-pooed even then. Why do we have why should we listen to this stuff? But now I believe that it's having a major sort of revival again, and it's wonderful. So, um, we're having that his music, obviously, as I say, is a centerpiece around actually other female composers. Amy Beach, I don't know if you know, Cecilia
Yes,
McDowell, of course,
yes.
and a French composer, Lily Boulanger. So we're really celebrating lots of cool music this event, which I'll mention about when it is in a moment. But just before we finish, just to say, of course, your music featured in the Paralympic game opening ceremony, which must have been seen by over 1 billion people. Um, uh, just tell us a little bit about that.
That was such an exciting commission. I was composing for 7 choirs, amateur choirs from across London, and I think we had 430 voices there in the stadium, and then I had to write a work for them and the LSO, and then another work for solo singer, and that was Denise Lee LSO. But the choir commission was really fantastic, and I wrote music that was quite a stretch, but the commission was to sort of celebrate the age of the Enlightenment, developments in science, particularly physics, Isaac Newton. But the thing is, the piece only had to be 4 minutes long, so I had to cram all of this. But I made use of clusters. It was and also the explorations in space. I do. I actually love the sound of massed choirs. So, I can't wait to hear Pache done with such a. The other thing I wanted to say, the sound that I wrote this piece Principia for Paralympic Games. We demoed it with professional singers so that the choir members could learn their parts. But I realised when I heard the first rehearsal of the choir that the sound I was writing for was the sound of natural voices, not trained voices. And it's a sound I really, really love.
Dare I say, amateur singing is at the very heart and core of our musical community, really, and it's just so good to be getting it back together again. Just before we finish, then, and Errollyn, thank you so much. Just, do you have any advice for any young female composers listening to uh, this, our little interview, our little chat together? Anything you want to offer in terms of advice to them?
I think to realise that to be a composer is is a long road, and you never fully arrive at the state of knowing everything. But what I love about composing is that you, in every composing situation and performing situation, that's what it's about. You're particularly working with live music, and that is the arrival for me. Just being busy, being involved, finding out about music. So don't be scared to ask musicians, singers, orchestras. Just realize that it's a lifelong quest of actual learning, and let your curiosity drive you. That's the most important thing.
Well, thanks, Errollyn, so much. I'm just going to wrap it up by saying, anyone who's listening, or I don't know how we're actually communicating all of this, but here are the facts. We're singing this concert in which Errollyn's Parche is being performed on May the 19th in Holy Trinity, Sloane Square in London, and tickets are available from the Bach Choir website. So thanks again, Errollyn. It's been really lovely to speak to you again, and good luck for the opera.
It's a pleasure to speak with you, David. See you on the 19th.